The Nasdaq hit a record intraday high Thursday morning, but is now retreating along with the Dow and the S&P 500. For a check of the markets, let's go to Houston, where we're joined by Victoria Fernandez, Chief Market Strategist at Crossmark Global Investments. Welcome back, Victoria. Um, Companies, they keep putting off their guidance for lack of visibility. What gauges are you currently using to get a sense of where the economy and earnings are headed, and what are those gauges telling you?
So, Fred, you're right. With companies not really providing guidance, you can't use the typical fundamental analysis that you would from earnings season or even from the daily economic numbers that are coming out because they are so distorted. So, you're going to have to shift the way you think a little bit. Let's look at everyone's phone on their apps, the apps that tell you directions on where you're going. We've seen that go higher, obviously for walking directions, but we've seen it move quite a bit higher recently for driving directions. We're not seeing it as far as public transportation goes, which should not be a surprise. But look at other things: gas usage, electricity usage, even rents, the percentage of rents that are being paid on time. That's a key factor as well. So you're going to have to kind of shift the way you think, look at unusual numbers to give you a better guide as to what's going to happen over the coming
And
quarters.
Victoria, I know you always at Crossmark take a look at the long-term impact, and that's how you do your investing. But what can you gauge from those gauges? What is it telling you about the chances of the economic recovery or the pace of and corporate earnings?
I think the pace is going to be pretty slow. I know many people anticipated that we were going to get through the virus quickly. As soon as cities started to open up, that we were immediately going to have demand come back. Everything was going to come roaring back in that big V-shaped recovery. Now, maybe we're seeing V-shaped in some of the markets, as you mentioned, the NASDAQ, but I don't think the economy is going to come back in that V-shape. Trends are starting to move higher, but we're not seeing dramatic improvements. The only area where we really have seen that is in housing with mortgage applications. That tells us we'll probably have a pretty good foundation come the second half of this year for the recovery to kind of get a little bit stronger as people start to go back to work.
All right, so if the market is a V-shaped recovery, as you correctly point out, but the economy, or at least your outlook, is not for a V-shape, are the markets well ahead of themselves? Are they overpriced at this point?
So it's really hard to evaluate stock prices right now. I mean, as you mentioned about earnings previously, you can't really use that PE component and start to value. I mean, if you do, we're looking at what, 24 times right now on the S&P. So looking at that, you'd say yes, we're overvalued. I think there's certain areas of the market that are not, and that's the key component in something like this. Look at the areas of the market that you think are going to continue to trend higher over the coming quarters. Look at those opportunities. That could be where you actually find some value in the market.
And Victoria, where are those places that you see opportunities then, where you can invest right now?
So for us at Crossmark, as you mentioned, Fred, we take that longer term perspective, and we're doing the same thing now. Even though things have changed in the short term because of COVID-19, what of these changes are going to continue over the longer term? So look at data, infrastructure, not just data itself, but infrastructure. Look at cloud, look at 5G, look at internet businesses. And I don't necessarily mean a company providing internet service itself, but companies that have used that both in people's professional and personal lives. We have relied on the internet more over the last few months, and some of that will not change going forward, maybe in healthcare or in delivery. So look at some of those areas that have longer term trends that will carry after COVID-19.
All right, thank you. And lastly, so if the markets are V-shaped, the economic recovery is what shape then, in your view?
We're actually looking at kind of a W. And I know there's alphabet soup and everyone's looking at their different letters that they have. We think longer term, as we get towards the end of this year into 2021, we're going to see a more sustainable trend higher. But there's so many unknowns right now, not just COVID-19 and reopening. We have some social unrest going on in major cities. We've got an election coming up. We have US-China trade wars heating up again. A lot of volatility can happen before that sustained move higher. So we're looking at a W shape.
All right, thank you for spelling out that alphabet soup, Victoria. Appreciate it. Our thanks to Victoria Fernandez of Crossmark Global Investments in Houston. I'm Fred Katayama in New York. This is Reuters.